As a company, we're experiencing tremendous growth this year, and we have a lot of requests from the customers, and it accelerates. So our team is growing, but on the other hand, we are starting to use more and more digital tools in order to make our team more efficient and take out, the routine work from the human and leave for the sales and marketing people, the creative tasks or human-to-human negotiations, high-level negotiations. Digital tools or AI could help with a daily routine that in the past, managers spent a lot of time on that, and the teams needed to be much larger in the past than we have now. So efficiency, I think, comparing to when I started my career, we are at least 2-3 times more efficient in terms of what one team member can do in specific time frame. Hi, it's David Rapoport, and you are watching Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Welcome, Data Center friends. It's Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I'm thrilled to have a very special guest joining me today. I'm welcoming David Rapoport, who is the Chief Business Development Officer at ASOTO. David, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Joshua. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad to have you on as well to talk about such an important topic around power sustainability, energy storage, all the issues that come about with companies figuring out how they're going to continue to grow their digital infrastructure with the challenges that we face in the world. So really looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So it's my pleasure to have this discussion.
Yeah, so the first place I think that would be super helpful to start is, could you walk me through and let our visitors and viewers and know how did you know that you originally wanted to work in digital infrastructure and data centers? Was it something that you studied in university? Was it originally on your career aspirations as you were growing up, or did somewhere along your career path you accidentally end up in this place where you've gotten to be such a specialist and subject matter expert in digital infrastructure?
Yeah. So actually, when I studied, there was no data centers like we have now. So I studied electrical engineering, and I started my career with IT and telecom. So gradually it moved, to data center space, and currently I'm working with a power company. Yeah, the company that generates and develops, power solutions that are used by data centers. So actually, I changed, my career a few times over my life, and it's all related. And I think it's just a natural evolution, at least for me.
What's super interesting about this now is the world that we live in and everything that's going on in and around the data center and digital infrastructure and all the dozens of adjacent industries around it is so much centers around GPUs, how we're going to upgrade data centers, and how we're going to get the utility power to get to all those data centers. So this, I'm sure, is going to be something really cool and fascinating to learn more about for you. But I think a really interesting place to start with would be for your advice and your insights for someone that's just thinking of what they want to do when they graduate from university, what they're looking at career options, and they've heard a little bit about data centers. Certainly data centers are capturing more mainstream attention among traditional media, business media, than they have in recent years. And you come across, maybe it's a friend or family member or a neighbor or a son or daughter of a coworker, and they're curious about your thoughts on what it's like working in the data center industry. What advice would you give to someone in that place?
Yeah, so for somebody who just thinking to start, a career in data centers, there are a number of various roles. Yeah, and obviously, as I mentioned about myself, not necessarily the education that you get in university. It would be your profession for all your life, and actually now I think it's very flexible. Over your lifespan, you can change many roles. I would suggest, to focus on what you're really passionate about, what you like, and, start, if you like sales and marketing, go to sales. If you're a business-oriented person, if you're, let's say, like more engineering, you can go and, be an engineer, IT specialist in data center. And of course, you can, if you speak about data center, you could be a utility specialist. There are many utilities inside the data center that should be designed, supported. So there are a large number of different, professions inside the data center. It's good, to learn, understand, and the most important, do what you like.
They always say if you manage to pick a career that you love, you'll never work a day. You'll feel like you've never worked a day in your life. But yeah, that's so. The challenge is thinking through like what makes the most sense for this individual. And you're right, is that it's not just that there's technical jobs and there's more customer-facing jobs, and then even within there, you have the operators, you have the technology companies, the facility companies, of which ASOTO is probably more aligned with that, taking care of energy and power related. And then there's the whole separate real estate development, the investors and the construction. So it's a very multifaceted industry. So that's fantastic advice and insights for someone that's at the beginning of their career. What about someone who's more mid-career? Maybe you worked with them at another job or in a related role. Maybe they were a client or partner of yours in a job you worked at 10 years ago or so, and you run into them at a conference. You're like, David, congratulations on all your successes being Chief Business Development Officer now at ASOTO. But I'm kind of hit a rut mid-career. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. I want to stay within the data center industry, but I'm not quite sure what direction to go in. What advice would you give to someone that's in that place?
Yeah. So obviously there are many drivers, that drive the change, and people need to adapt. Just one most recent big example is AI adoption. So if you look how sales and marketing been working even a year or maybe 2 years ago, it's totally different. So since we started to use AI tools, and the simplest one and the most known one, of course, is ChatGPT. So it's totally different work for sales and marketing. You can save a lot of time, you can save a lot of routine works. The marketing is different. But on the other hand, I should mention that, like live events, conferences became more productive, and people like to talk and, spend more, let's say, quality time. And it's important to build relations, partner. Of course, you need to rely on partners. Market is very big. I think ownership is very important. And yeah, and for person who thinks, about the change in the career, kind of like in mid ages, again, you need to think what you really like to do, what you're passionate about, and go with this. Yeah, it's always good to start something new, and it will bring new motivation. And when you change something in your career, you can also bring, let's say, a value to your company when you start maybe doing something else that you did before. You, let's say, have fresh ideas, and it's always good, to change, from time to time your role. I think it's important. It's, I would say, 3-4 years maximum. It's a good idea to switch your role or adapt it. Not necessarily you need to go to a new place to work, but inside your company, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's super fascinating, because if you think about like as recently as a generation ago, when our parents were in their peak working years, it was largely very normal to hear of people that spent their entire career with the same company, with the same organization. You'd see people that worked 20, 30 years with the same company when they actually retired. Now it's now 3 or 4 years is considered fairly long tenure. And when they've done research, at least in the US, and they look at the average tenure length of CMOs or chief revenue officers. In most cases, it's less than 2 years. So yeah, it's not surprising that you're seeing the need to kind of take this proactive control of thinking about what you want to do next, where you can add value, and thinking ahead to what you can do for a particular company given your previous background.
In general, I want to answer maybe from the different angle. We need to look not at career, not like a traditional way, like you go from role to role, and you want maybe to just grow or do some similar roles over your lifespan, but rather focus on the tasks, on the missions. Yeah, for example, you have a mission of developing specific new market, or constructing new data center, or constructing a new power plant. Yeah, so, and it's much more convenient, I think, nowadays to focus on a project, on a task, on a goal, rather than on your specific role. Yeah, because during the times that you work on specific task, your role could be like very multitasking. Yeah, and you should adapt on the way. It's not necessarily one specific skill, especially if you talk about the C-level management. So you should be very, very flexible and focus on your mission. Okay, I think this is the most important, and this should be the guideline. What drives you.
I think that helps too, as a really good alignment tool between a person in their career and aligning with their management and the business's overall goals. It reminds me of that famous Bill Gates quote of people overestimate what they can do in 12 months, but they underestimate what they can do over a period of several years. And when you think about most initiatives that are worth taking on in this space, whether it's growing a new market, opening new facilities, expanding, it's very rare that things happen in months, but a lot can happen in years.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, it's good idea to, when you have like a big goal, and start first of all thinking what would be my next step, and then the big goal becomes doable, and it's important to start, to make the first step, and not just to think about the end result. It's very hard to see, let's say, the end result in the beginning of a large project.
So with that in mind, David, when you think about what's going on in the data center and digital infrastructure across Europe and globally, and you think about issues like sustainability and electricity, grid utility power, decentralization of power, what do you see that you think is being done well, and where do you think are the biggest areas that need to be addressed, where there's pretty major gaps right now?
Yeah, so there are some facts that we see what happens now in the market. It's a general fact, not necessarily related to data centers, but also to data centers. The number one challenge is power availability. No, without relation to the source of the power. Is it a green or non-green power? So there is not enough power in the Western world. Yeah, in Europe, the same situation in US. So there is not enough power from the grid, and it's obvious, and it's also understood that there is no magic to change this situation. If you want to do like the traditional way, it will take many years and very big investment, billions over billions, for each country to expand the grid and power generation. So the other possibility is to move from traditional centralized power generation to the decentralized power generation, when consumer takes responsibility and starts to generate power for the own needs. Yeah. This trend is relatively new, but it's growing very fast. And talking with data center guys, obviously they're driven by AI and they need to expand 10 times, and there are many new constructions of data centers and no available grid, and companies starting to generate electricity themselves. Is it maybe could be a natural gas, diesel usually used for backups. Many companies, starting to think about other sources of energy, hydrogen, green ammonia, even nuclear power generation. So what is clear is that in the next years, we would need every source of energy, so that we can provide all the needs of electricity that are generated by data centers. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. Over the last couple of weeks, the last few people I've interviewed for this podcast, the concept of heat reuse has come up a couple of times as well. Do you see that as part of the equation too, where all of this excess heat is repurposed in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, of course. I know, a number of data centers that reuse heat, sometimes for their own needs. Sometimes they cooperate with communities and transfer the heat, to the nearby communities. It would be extremely useful, and yeah, it's another source of to be more sustainable and efficient.
Yeah, it's super interesting too, because when it comes to the conversations about grid power capacity, at least in the US, what's starting to enter the mainstream business media is what happens when electric vehicles go from 10% adoption to 50% adoption, and half of your neighbors need to charge their EVs, and that's competing for grid power supply. And then everyone's like, well, what about solar? Yep, solar can help too. Maybe it just takes care of the lights in the parking lots and some perimeter lighting. It's probably not going to power the GPUs, but so yes, these are multifaceted, complex problems, and I imagine that's a lot of what you're working on at ASOTO.
Yeah, so it's a good example, by the way. EVs, they consume a lot of power, and yeah, if you have a large percentage of adoption in the country, so obviously you need to provide a lot of electricity. It could be comparable, for some extent to data centers. Yeah. So, and yes, grid is not enough. And as we said before, very low chances that grid would be constructed very fast to meet all the demands of EVs, of data centers, all the needs, and decentralized power generation or private power generation would be a solution, for that, because everybody want to keep up with the new trends, EV adoption and AI adoption, and AI obviously reflects the data center growth. So I see that in the near future it will be two types of power generation: centralized and decentralized. And at some point, I think the decentralized power generation would be even bigger. One of the important example nowadays is Ukraine. So in Ukraine, power generation facilities are largely destroyed. Yeah, I think about 9 gigawatts. Yeah, and because of that, one of the possibilities, or maybe the only possibility to start, restoring the power supply, is by decentralized power generation. bringing a lot of power units, plug and play units that could be deployed very fast and rapidly and start producing electricity. Of course, conflicts are not the only source, for this, to drive decentralized power generation. For example, lack of grid, it's kind of the same. You don't need a war for that, yeah. So the result is the same. But in Ukraine, it's one of the big examples, on the level of the country, that this solution starts and all this concept of decentralized power generation starts to be implemented.
I think what a lot of people also don't realize is the lead time that's involved to expand and rebuild and overhaul grids. And you think about, look at like technology, well-known technology entrepreneurs like Jensen Huang and Michael Dell and Elon Musk, and they share their innovations of what they're working on, and they're typically making huge strides forward in months. When you think about the time frame that most nations anywhere, either in North America or Europe or anywhere on the globe, take to debate and decide on the policy for what they're going to do with grid power, let alone build the infrastructure, it's multi-years. The question is, do we have multi-years? Probably. This is where the entrepreneurial solutions need to step in and fill these, innovation needs to fill these voids.
I think my opinion, of course, we don't have this, large amounts of time. So we need to go with, with electricity, generation expansion at the same pace, like, the consumers of electricity grow. Because everybody wants to grow. Nobody wants to stop and wait before you provide electricity. People want to make business, they want to grow, they want to live. So that's why the decentralized, power generation is so important. Even you gave example of, the few famous people. I also want to give another one.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.decentralized.com. Again, that URL is www.decentralized.com.
Sam Altman, Sam Altman is famous for, obviously, ChatGPT, yeah, everybody knows it. But he started a new company called Oklo, and it's already traded on the stock market, and they aim to make in few years small nuclear power plants with a granularity of tens of megawatts. So at the end, what is important for AI is the availability of electricity. Without electricity, it can continue to grow.
Yeah, and even I saw somewhere a couple of weeks ago that the models could potentially have ingested all of the available data to train the models by 2027. So that's why OpenAI and other companies like that are striking all of these deals with major publishers for where they're going to get the data from next to continue improving the accuracy of the models. But there's also another private equity investor in digital infrastructure who was on Bloomberg a couple of weeks ago talking about that in a year and a half to 2 years, we're going to be out of power to continue funding all of this innovation. So you're absolutely right. It's multifaceted. You really have to deal with this issue on multiple fronts to be successful.
It's true. It's true, and we need to start thinking about this now, and think about the power we will need in the future. At the end, if we speak about all the innovation, maybe a little bit simplistic way. So if you look, what is AI? AI is mathematical algorithms. Yeah. If you look on blockchain, or mining, for example, of cryptocurrencies, it's also mathematical manipulations. Yeah. So basically, we take some electricity or electrical signals and apply some algorithm on them, and we have the solutions that we need, and we use them. So basically, the power or electricity is is the initial phase of our product or our product that we like to use, and we need to think how we getting this power in enough quantities, to fit all the demands. And I'm sure that in a few years we'll have some other new trends that we're still not aware about, and they will also consume electricity.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know that's coming next.
Yes, but it will come.
I want to spend a little bit of time to learn a little bit more about what your daily routine, your weekly routine, monthly routine is like being a chief business development officer in the space, and in particular, how you think this might change over the next few years as buyer preferences seem to evolve more towards self-service. So kind of thinking ahead in your crystal ball, what does this role look like, leading sales, leading marketing for a company in your space 2, 3, 4 years out from now?
Yeah. So my daily or weekly routine is at least few days we meet with the team at the office, meetings, planning, working on providing solutions for our customers. Almost every week I spend on traveling 2-3 days, customer meetings. ASOTO as a company, we're experiencing tremendous growth this year, and we have a lot of requests from the customers, and it accelerates. So our team is growing, but on the other hand, we are starting to use more and more digital tools in order to make our team more efficient, and take out the routine work from the human, and leave for the human or for the sales and marketing people the creative tasks, or human to human negotiations, high level negotiations, while digital tools or AI could help with a daily routine that in the past, managers spent a lot of time on that, and the teams needed to be much larger in the past than we have now. So efficiency, I think, comparing to what I started when I started my career, we are at least 2-3 times more efficient in terms of what one team member can do in specific time frame.
And when I think about the big leaps forward over the past 10 years in marketing technology and sales technology, something as basic 10 years ago that's commonplace today is like a self-booking calendar. David, when should we meet? I don't know. And you trade emails back and forth 3-4 times, and then along came Calendly and HubSpot and all those tools that make that so much more efficient today, basic workflow automation. And now we're confronted with all these generative AI tools. And it's interesting. I always get friends and family members that want to know my thoughts on what I'm doing specifically with AI. And I said, well, what it largely comes down to is some of the tools are new, some of the tools have been upgraded and infused with, but if the SaaS developers and the platform developers do their job well, it doesn't actually feel like, it just feels like you're doing your job better. It helps you to provide more efficiency, getting things done faster, getting more inputs done. And in a lot of ways, it feels like tasks and projects that you used to have to hire specialists for, contractors for, are now being done by the software.
True. So all what you said, it's very true. And I would add another, aspect is like you feel much better, much bigger self-fulfillment. So it's very little time now while you just start your task and when you accomplish it. Using AI tools, you can do things very fast. Just an example, 10 years ago, it took quite a while to write a press release. Yeah, you can do it now in hours, and it would be a very high quality press release. So you are streamlining your work, and you can see the results of your work much faster. It's like we moved to the to the racing cars. Yeah, like if you compare it to the cars. And for me personally, it's very good feeling when you accomplish your tasks faster.
I look at even something as basic on the content generation side. I've been hosting webinars for 15 or 20 years, and there used to be a whole industry of transcription companies.
Yeah.
And over time, the tools have gotten better and better and less expensive and less expensive. And I'm sure there still are some specialized cases where human transcribers are still actively involved, but it doesn't seem like it's a really great business to be in at this stage. Copy editing, same thing. Used to spend a lot of budget on human copy editors and proofreaders to improve the content, and Grammarly has incrementally gotten better and better. And there's still certainly a place for very high leverage projects in human editing, but for a lot of routine things, it's what they say with a lot of AI is it doesn't have to necessarily be better than humans at this stage, but if it's even 80% better because it's so much faster and the cost basically drops to zero, it's changing the game in so many places.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, but I would say we don't really need to compare human to AI. AI is very good in some specific tasks related to counting, making texts, analyzing large amounts of information. But for example, AI is very bad in understanding, our physical world. Yeah, for AI, it's very hard to understand what is the power of gravity, like and even not human animals. Cat or dog understands it's much better what is the force of gravity rather than AI. So I think it's this. Our strength is when we know how to combine and work as a team, or work together, human and AI. Human does better some task, and AI does better the other tasks. Yeah. So it's like a team, AI and human. That I think it's a winning formula.
That's probably why Microsoft settled on the name Copilot, although I've seen quite a few companies in the AI space adopting that mentality for probably 3, 4, 5 years, that it's someone literally sitting next to you in the cockpit helping you fly the plane.
Correct. It's
metaphorically.
It's true. And it's AI is not going to replace human. I always know, from I don't know, people just ask you, your relatives, or is they going to? We don't need people anymore. No, of course, no. Every technological revolution at the end creates much more work than it was before. Yeah, and it's very hard to see it in the beginning of the revolution.
People adapt, people change. The taxi drivers have adapted to become rideshare drivers. There are people that a lot of people that used to make a living as toll takers on highways, collecting tolls, and then it went to electronic, and then so it changes.
Yeah.
There's always new opportunities that open up.
True. Yeah.
David, do you have any favorite tools or applications that you use that you find especially indispensable leading business development efforts for a company in mission critical and digital infrastructure that help you do your job better, help your team work better, more efficiently?
I think the number one tool is obviously ChatGPT. It's also Copilot that you mentioned, but it's kind of, I would say, kind of the same. What we see, even in CRM, we see some nice AI features that streamline the work of salespeople. But it's all about large language models. So various tools adapt some models and it actually makes a big difference. Yeah, I would say that it's not one specific tool that it's important. I think it's important across all the tools that you use. This adoption, and it happens. So vendors of the marketing and sales and marketing tools, they introduce it, and every month you will see something new. A tool for generating video, generating content, pictures, whatever. Yeah, so it's just something that happens now was a dream a few months ago. Yeah, so this is the speed of change right now, and it's fascinating to work these days.
That actually brings up a really interesting question that I have for you too, is how do you keep up? Do you have favorite podcasts or YouTubers or blogs or newsletters? What's your main sources that you use to keep your skills sharp, given that the world is changing so quickly, at least on a professional development front?
Yeah, so it's obviously the podcast that I wouldn't mention something specific. Many things I hear from my colleagues or peers. Yeah, and they recommend some tools. Sometimes I read the news, or um, I hear some podcast. Yeah, but in general, it would be good idea to focus on such maybe dedicated podcast. So maybe your initiative is a very good initiative to start sharing the experience in specific industry between all the players, and it's very important to share, because no chance that one person will know or will be aware about all the new stuff that happens.
I think that's been one of the big changes in the last 5 or 10 years as well, that's shifting to this trend called dark social, where people are learning from their peers so much. They're trusting their peers so much more than they're trusting mainstream media. And it's putting so many more challenges on traditional marketing attribution models, and the disappearance of third-party cookies is also putting so many challenges on that. But you're right, is a lot of the ways that I learn also is just what shows up in my LinkedIn feed. And what's showing up in my LinkedIn feed is a combination of companies that I've chosen to follow, individuals that I'm connected with, and a lot of their interactions, how they're liking content, how they're commenting on content, how they're resharing content. And you're right, that's a great way that you get exposed to new ideas. And YouTube works a very similar way. All these feed-based platforms where the platforms not only know what you've explicitly told them that you want to subscribe or follow, but they also know inferentially what you stop and read. And they pick up on those cues as well, unlike 5 or 10 years ago, where you had to actually tell it that, no, I want to follow this topic or this channel. No, they actually know, because if someone's stopping and reading posts from David Rapoport all the time, they're going to show you more posts from David Rapoport, even if you haven't yet connected with David Rapoport.
It's true. Yeah. So even let's say AI promotes itself. Yeah. So the information knows how to reach you, and the right information, the information that you're looking for, or maybe the information that would be efficient for you or needed to the individual. Yeah. It's much easier to get access to this information.
That's where the personalization, the extreme personalization at scale, I think, is where we've experienced, almost everyone has experienced this for the better part of 10 years. Anyone that's ever bought something on Amazon or watched Netflix or used Google Maps or Waze, we've all experienced the AI and the extreme personalization. It's just now that it's becoming, we think about segmenting a market and your different buyer personas and your ideal client profile. It's just the level at which we can do this now is not only a nice to have, it becomes a must have, because our consumers are just expecting it.
It's true. It's everywhere, even in the power industry. It's very traditional industry. Customers expect a lot of personalization now. For the solutions that they want, and this is one of our tasks. Yeah, and that's why we actually create our system out of like building blocks like Lego, yeah, and we can construct, customized solution to specific customer needs, for private power generation. And I think it's mandatory, and it's one of our biggest differentiators in the market. So personalization, I think it's a key, yeah, and everybody expects it, and it's across industries. People, learn about this during the daily, even the simplest tasks when they, go and buy some stuff online at Amazon, yeah, and then they go to work and they expect the same level of personalization, from their suppliers, when they work, at their work, not like private life. So, and it's like a snowball. It just runs and runs and runs, and it will not stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I see so many more companies that in the last few years have made big investments in customer experience and prospect experience and employee experience and channel partner experience. And it's a matter of getting deeper on the insights and being able to iterate and use technology to make things available 7/24, 365, where it's just either not cost effective or not practical for a human to do that level of personalization.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, this is what happens.
David, this has all been fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing your insights about where you see the need for decentralized power generation to be going and dealing with sustainability issues and how green is part of it, but not the whole part of it, and especially your career advice. It's been super insightful. What's the best way for someone watching or listening this to learn more about you, follow what you're working on, learn more about ASOTO? Are you pretty active on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I really recommend to follow me on LinkedIn. It's my favorite, maybe even the only one social network that I use, and I'm trying to post, everything related to the business, to, some new ideas, what I'm thinking about, my opinions, some new trends. Yeah, please follow me on LinkedIn and connect. It would be great.
And what's the best way for someone to learn more about what you're working on over at ASOTO?
I think the best way is again, we can go back to LinkedIn, visit our website, or just be in touch with us. We'll be happy to talk.
Great. I'll make sure to include links to both of those in the show notes along with the podcast. David, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. It's a wealth of information. I know a lot of data center operators and technology companies and real estate investors are going to get an enormous amount of value from hearing your perspective. And there's also quite a few people that I'm speaking with that are into heat reuse and sustainability and building monitoring and sensors within facilities are going to get a lot of value from understanding your perspective. And hopefully you'll get some great people reaching out to partner or do business with you in ASOTO as well.
Thank you, Joshua. Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Take care now, David.
Okay, thanks.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.